Travis Wingoodsall. Special video presentation for the few of you that YouTube allows to watch. Mormons should accept and should not get angry at me for or deny that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is waiting for their kingdom to come, in which they believe Jesus will reign on the whole earth, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will be proven the one true church. All governments will fall, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will be merged with government to become a theocracy as a kingdom over the whole earth. And so, what will the kingdom be like? So right now, the church is not able to implement everything that they want to implement because of the big, bad, mean old United States of America denying them religious freedom. And so there's some things you need to know and understand, because Mormons are wanting to live in a little faith bubble and do not fully grasp what the church is up to. And so, thus, as we are nearing the final solution this year for America, you kind of need to know. Now, we don't need to worry about government because you think it's Jesus and he speaks through the president of the church, and that administration will continue. So we need to know the stuff that we know will change. And so, yeah, all Mormons know Millennium will be the resuming of child bride polygamy. It's what Brigham Young had practiced. The big, bad, mean old United States shut it down for their tithing crimes, making polygamy, sex trafficking, and prostitution. Although prostitution wasn't really part of the crimes, it's now a crime to be involved in prostitution, unless you're the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints doing it. It's those non-Mormon, antichrist, anti-Korah apostates who are doing it, not wearing their underwear as a symbol of the bondage and loyalty to the church. And if you miss conference, it's on you if you don't understand that that's what your underwear is for, because Oakes made it very clear. So, yeah, child bride polygamy will resume. Brigham Young and his Danites went out of their way to frame Joseph Smith for polygamy and child bride rape and stealing of other men's wives, when it was them who were doing it. And so, yeah, they want that back. So Nelson went out of his way to make sure that it was a super sacred secret by putting it in the temple, where only loyal Mormons who have temple recommends have to be scanned in to be approved to hear of the super secret sacred change to the law of chastity. And technically the law of the gospel, but he doesn't explain it until the law of chastity. The higher law of Jesus, there is no such thing in any scripture whatsoever, except for Bruce R. McConkey's chapter headings. But it's not in the text of the Book of Mormon. And so, yeah, it's the highest degree of the celestial kingdom, which we still have it in there since Brigham Young put it in 1876, the year before he died. And yeah, And Joseph Smith Papers makes it very clear Joseph Smith did not practice it. It's not Joseph Smith's doctrine. Brigham Young replaced Joseph Smith's doctrine of monogamy with polygamy. Gutted Section 132 to make it seem like Joseph Smith was talking about polygamy. So, yeah, polygamy. And they went down to 14 years old. Nelson lowered the age to 11 with the change in the law of chastity and successive conference talks to allow 11-year-old girls to now go to the temple, rather than waiting until they're 12 years old to begin, what is it, My Maid still, or did they change it to Sunbeam Plus or something? And then Oakes would come out in that October 2019 conference and say that the secret word for polygamy is trust in the Lord. As that's what he opened with, was a discussion on polygamy. Trust in the Lord. And so, when girls are to be born and bred for polygamous marriages, then they need to be pregnant year after year after year after year. And so there's no time for women to get an education, to go on missions, which is men's responsibility and duty, not women. And thus, without an education, there's no need for you to get a career. Because your focus, your plan of happiness for you is to be a breeder to a polygamist husband. And of course, because righteousness is determined according to rank in the church, the higher the rank, the higher the righteousness. And so thus, the higher the rank, being the higher righteous, gets first pick for their harem. If you're unfamiliar with this practice, I refer to the FLDS church and the way they did it, and thus resulting in the Lost Boys and all chaos and pandemonium ensued. I did get a story from one guy who said that one of the Lost Boys ended up having a successful life and is living happily and willfully. Good for him. However, too many others were thrown in prison for being FLDS. So, yeah. When the leaders are the ones who are getting all the women can't trickle down to the regular man who's only an elder. It's an inside priesthood joke. But you can find the pamphlet. It was by Packer, wasn't it? McConkie? No. No, they have the manual at the church's website. Will they allow me to download it? They have Bruce R. McConkie. Only an elder, only the title by which a member of the Council of the 12 is proud to be addressed. But yeah, elders are not members of the 12, you dumbass. Oh, they do not allow a download. But include footnotes. So I can save it as a PDF with the printing. So yeah, it was October 3rd conference, 1974. So, yeah, they should also have the conference address, because I think they go back to 71. And I was sure there was a pamphlet by Packer or Ballard, one of the five. Anyway. And so, yeah, what are the regular guys supposed to do? Well, missions. And so just as Brigham Young made the announcement in this valley in 1852 that polygamy is supposed to be practiced openly in defiance of the United States of America. They'd already been practicing it in secret, remember? Now Brigham Young made it an open public command. And so elders, if they wanted wives, were told not to complain. Turn that frown upside down and go convert your wives. And so then they complained that the ones who already had the wives were already out on missions getting more wives. Yeah. So, yeah, lots of problems. Lots of problems when women are a commodity. When women are monetized. And so, what would be the economy? Well, the church has 119. Law of consecration in the temple, but we are told tithing. And we are told that we need to give our surplus to the church, and then we pay an additional 10% of our interest annually. However, at least Benson, if not further back to Heber J. Grant, they would explain any wage, even when you're a slave, 10% must be given to the church. This obviously goes in violation of the Book of Mormon. For the laborer in Zion, shall labor for Zion, for if they labor for money, they shall perish. Which means no barter, no trade, no wives for a harem, no monetization whatsoever. Well, how do we pay for things? The earth already has the resources. They just need to be worked. And so, yeah, because of the lack of technology that we currently have, slaves were put to hard labor to do all the hard work for the rich elites. Yeah, no. We now have the technology so that there is no more slave labor. Robotic, automated systems can do all the hard work to preserve human life, to prevent slavery. And so that might concern many of you, especially of the older generation, who believes that the idle hands are the devil's workshop. You've got to be involved in slave labor all your life. Otherwise, you are a pawn of Satan. No, that's a white supremacist misinterpretation of the Bible. Because to invent technology means you're listening to the Spirit. Good for you. Where there is hard labor, There is no spirit. There is the taking away of agency. Oops. And so, many of you may not understand that the church is fascist, that the Danites of Brigham Young were a branch off of the Scottish Rites pre-1826, September 11th. Yeah, September 11th. In which they were infiltrated by the Illuminati, founded May 1st, 1776 by Johann Adam Weishaupt. They tried to deceive us by saying that the organization is gone, it no longer exists. And yet, the secret signs are everywhere. The secret words are everywhere. It's amazing how they think we're going to be stupid and believe them when they're the ones. And so, yeah. How was Brigham Young a part of that group? Well, when was the Nauvoo Temple dedicated? When was it finished? And when did he dedicate it? And why were Mormons angry that it wasn't done on April 6th? The anniversary of the Illuminati, May 1st, 1846. And redesigned the outside of the temple to include carvings. Of what symbol? All around it. Inverted pentagrams. Well, that must mean the church is true. Dumbass Mormons. See, I had no other explanation. After my wedding in 2015, seeing the inverted pentagram on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple, where we were sealed in room number 13, which is interesting, because that's the York Rites, not the Scottish Rites. York Rites was Joseph Smith Sr., who saved America on 9/11/1826. And nobody knows about it but me and those who have watched those videos of mine. And whether or not you believe them, that lowers the percentages. There are factual information, and yet there are still people trying to lie and deceive people and withhold information. Nonetheless. And so, with the failure on 9/11/1846 or 1826, the Danites were the ones who were recruited by Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball. They were the first group recruited, and their whole plot was to destroy the church that Joseph Smith founded with 6 members for the 6-pointed star of the Jews. In case you didn't know, the Book of Mormon, 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 2, says it's in the religion of the Jews, not Christians. So who put another testament of Jesus Christ as the subtitle, Kimball? Grandson of Heber. He also tried to clean up Carthage jail because the evidence suggested that Willard Richards and John Taylor were part of the coup, the murder, not the mob, who were paid the Judas price by Brigham and Heber. with all that tithing money that was supposed to go for the building of the Nauvoo temple. Oops. Secret economy. All right there in the Joseph Smith papers. And so those who did not join the church were the ones who fled down into the south of the United States and became the Confederates. How do we know? You ever seen the Confederate flag? Ever see the Dukes of Hazzard? The General Lee? I'm a kid. I wasn't taught this. I had no clue. I'm thinking it has something to do with illegal moonshine, which seems weird because alcohol is sold in the grocery stores. I don't understand. Why is moonshine illegal in the 70s? Makes no sense to me. I know our church has the word of wisdom where we're not supposed to drink alcohol, but that's just us. The rest of the United States doesn't have to obey the Mormon religion. So it made no sense to me. And so, yeah, the flag has inverted pentagrams on it. Kind of difficult to tell. You gotta adjust the stripes. There they are. And on the bloodline of the stripes, secret signs. And so one of the Confederates, after the loss in the Civil War, was the one who founded the KKK. And so, yeah, uses the Christian cross to burn on certain people's lawns. Interesting. Burning on a cross. And they made it a T-cross for the most part, rather than a cross, an X-cross, like the Confederate flag, but still symbolic of the same. Why would they have burning with a Christian cross, where X marks the spot with burning and bloodshed? What would they be up to? Does it have anything to do with the day that shall burn as an oven? The abomination of desolation? Curious. Replacing the Jewish scriptures, and now it's a whole new interpretation of events to come. Too bad Jesus never showed. So humiliating for Nelson. So humiliating. No temple, no palace, no throne, no Jesus, no abomination of desolation. Humiliations galore. And so in retaliation, it's in the coming days for the election this year. Just in case you didn't know, that's what we're building up to. And so the KKK were all over Congress back in the early 90s. So when Nazi Germany came around, yeah, they're their kind of people. And so we didn't get involved in Germany for the most part. Yeah, we sent out some token pilots. That was about it. And eventually we would then realize that Hitler was crossing the line of America's financial growth and prosperity. And we also learned that he was going to have a secret attack on America on the east side, as Japan was on the west. And so we got involved in the war, and we sided with commies. Russia was communist back then, not the fascist of Putin. And so, because of that, the Democrat platform of Republican conservatives switched after World War II. And the Republican Party pre-World War II became the Democrat platform post-World War II. And so, yes, that's why the GOP became fascist and the Democrats became commies, wrongly called socialists. Because Russia, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, communism, a socialist republic, communism. And so the United States, in Articles 4 and 6, if we just use 4, yeah, we could be communist. That's a Republican form of government. It's a socialist republic. Or we could be a fascism, a representative republic. But nope, Article 6 makes it very clear we are to be a constitutional republic. That it has no democracy in it whatsoever. People do not vote for what laws are to be passed. The laws are already in the Constitution of equal rights for all citizens. For life, for liberty, for property. All laws must be in accordance thereof, and pursuant thereto. Any special laws for special groups or against specific groups is unconstitutional, because there's already laws in place to protect everybody and to punish violators equally. We've never followed that, have we? And so, during World War II, the church was fully supportive of Nazi Germany. Moroni and the swastika. The church punished German Mormons who gave aid and comfort to the enemy Jews trying to flee. Anybody caught with a Schindler's List were punished by the church. Moroni and the swastika. You guys are allowed to watch it on YouTube. I'm not. And so, during this time, a Mormon here in the United States who was born in Ogden, I don't think it was Orem, I think it was Ogden, doesn't matter. He did his business as a psychologist in Colorado. And he's the one that created the dichotomous and non-dichotomous categorization of human behavior. It's a fallacy argument, and thus a falsehood. You can't categorize human behavior. There are way too many different causations for a single human behavioral response. But look at the whole world now. We're all doomed. And so yes, they've worked very hard and succeeded finally with the 2000 presidential election. dividing America in half for the most part. You're either conservative, fascist, or deep state, dem, progressive, now, commie. Those are your choices, and both of them are unconstitutional. If you've never read the Constitution. And so, as you can tell, they've been split into non-dichotomous categorizations over the course of time, as the deep state dem press, along with the conservative fascist press, have been facilitating this division. Because back in the good old days, news was supposed to actually just be news, reporting just the news, not giving panel discussions of their opinions to brainwash the masses that watch to one unconstitutional party or the other. But not since the internet or cable news was the first to start it off before the internet took over. And so, yeah, that's why you're seeing so many people attacking the other side rather than reporting the news. And this is altering the behavior of the American people. They're becoming more tribalistic. And so this is what contribution Stanley Smith Stevens did to the overthrow of America. Also, after World War II, there were Nazi doctors and psychologists, not too many psychologists because psychology was still being developed. So the Nazis purposely used people to be torturers of human behavior. Thus, psychology was born. Even though Freud in the early 1900s was dabbling with psychology, he never developed any theories for testing and confirmation. And so his cigar is just a cigar, it's all BS. But nonetheless, these Nazis love to use it. Thus, do you feel guilty when you masturbate? Well, what if I don't masturbate? Everybody masturbates. Don't try to fool us. Do you feel guilty? And so, yeah, they're trying to manipulate your behavior. Do you feel? And thus, psychologists typically are the ones who ask, how does that make you feel? And bullies pick up on this because that's what psychologists from Nazi Germany are. Bullies! Name calling! And one of the big name callers is Asperger. Hans Asperger. Dumbass picture as he's just a little boy. He's the one who termed autistic psychopathy. All of this is a fraud. It is based on fallacy arguments of Stanley Smith Stevens' non-dichotomous and dichotomous categorization of human behavior, which is all fallacy-driven. Not a single bit of logical Socratic methodology in any of it. No scientific development, no scientific testing for confirmation of fact. It's all self-fulfilling prophecy. Just like a bully. You go to school, the bully calls you names, threatens to beat you up if you don't give him your money. And it's done over and over and over and over, day after day after day after day, until you finally accept that you have the problem and that you go to school with your money to give to him. and that you accept that you are Four Eyes, or whatever the name calling is. This is what psychology does. They bully people, name call. And Asperger was the one who created the autism spectrum non-dichotomy. The whole thing is a fraud. Because if you do have brain problems that is not behaviorally related, like my behavior right now, I'm not turning my frown upside down. Remember? Behavioral control. I, therefore, have a problem. And that when I deny that I have a problem, it means that I have a problem because I'm in denial that I have a problem. It's a fallacy argument, thus is a falsehood. Not a single thing this Asperger did was correct. His full name is Johann Friedrich Karl Asperger. Born February 18th, 1906, and died 21st of October, 1980. 1 year before the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints became the secret combination of the secret combination that they created in 1981 called the Council for National Policy. Because they got psychologists into that group along with evangelicals and big corporate business people, and thus have been tampering in America to seek to overthrow the government, piece by piece, little by little, over the decades. And like I said, this year is the final solution. If you understand what went on in Nazi Germany, you will wet yourself realizing what America has become right now. All of you need to fear and tremble what is being done to America. And so Nazi Germany, with these evolving new creation of psychologists, were purposely creating all of these different categories of mental retardation for the sole purpose of human testing. You need to understand, Germany back then did not have a large population of blacks or Hispanics or Asian. And so, yeah, Jews were the target. And so, the swastika took the Hindu swastika and inverted it on its little tip. The secret sign goes all the way back to the Illuminati. That's why the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints supported Nazi Germany. And so, after World War II, America and other allied countries gave asylum to many of the Nazis, when all of them should have been sent to the gas chambers or the firing squads or whatever punishment was used back then to terminate the life of the war criminals. Because everybody was a war criminal in Nazi Germany. And there's a huge long list. Operation Paperclip was what the United States used to bring over Nazis to assist with the United States. And there were a lot that were chemists and mechanical engineers and scientists for the purpose of what became the space program and other technological advances. But again, so did psychologists. MK Ultra, for example, was where the CIA got with a psychologist to allow him the LSD, human experimentation, the altering of human behavior, to see if they can be conformed and compliant in their behavior. And yeah, the movie just came out last year on DVD. It was too awful for me to watch all the way through, because we saw on the streets and the news the effects of MK Ultra. And there are other non-invasive techniques such as hypnosis and the power of suggestion, in which people used to have only the movie theater to get their news from. This was before the Mormons in Rigby, Idaho invented the television. And so people would gather at the theater, and then the psychologists would perform human experimentations to insert picture clips in the frames of the film reel to see if the mass who was there at the theater would desire to go buy a Coca-Cola or popcorn. And thus why the movie theaters now greatly increase the cost of popcorn and sodas. Because they realized it worked. People seeing it, their subconscious mind processes it and goes, oh, yeah, I could use a Coca-Cola. And back in the early 1900s, it was called Coca-Cola for a reason. Which is why my grandpa used Pepsi instead of Coca-Cola. So he was a Pepsi drinker his whole life until he died. It was like 6 days before our wedding. Oops. So anyway. So yeah. And so the Nazis also labeled people, starting in 1839, in which triangles were used to label specific types of people. And the Jews also had an additional labeling of the Jewish star to symbolize that they were Jewish, for the purpose of rounding them up and exterminating them. Because this Asperger, by labeling people with the various behavioral problems, performed human experimentations on them and murdered them. And so in the United States of America, we have over 8 million who are receiving disability. USDebtClock.org keeps a continuous running tab because it never sleeps. It's always increasing. And so here in Utah, this is what the church was involved with. Those who were gay after World War II, thanks to Stanley Smith Stevens, were considered behaviorally challenged. They had the wrong behavior and we need to change it. They're happy. That's the actual definition of gay. And thus the bullying, name-calling. You're gay. And so, yes, when I was a kid, my white supremacist peers You're gay. You're gay. That's gay. This is gay. Everything is gay. Until they can get a sucker to believe them. Just like a psychologist. And so most people remained in the closet. Yeah, until they believed. And so how many different letters of the alphabet are now being used? For separate but equal, except for heterosexual. Huh. And I don't think child pedophilia is on there either. Why are they discriminating? Aren't they inclusive? Yeah, it's a psychological trick designed specifically to do what was done in Nazi Germany. And so what's going to be done in the nation after this election will be done in the state of Deseret, or shall we say Neo-Deseret. Because the church was practicing conversion therapy. It's not therapy, it's torture. It shows men having sex in a film reel that they're forced to watch, being strapped to a chair or two with their eyes taped open, and then they get shocked seeing guys have sex. And that's supposed to change their behavior to not desire sex with other guys. It fails, it does not work. They just tell their torturers whatever the torturers want to hear. And so they become bisexual and just don't do the gay sex part. And finally, the state of Utah stopped that practice in 2021, despite the objections by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The church's family services have had to give up their hospital, give up their adoption agency, give up the Boy Scouts. They want it all back. And so, if you hadn't paid attention, despite all of the various news stories coming out lately against psychology here in Utah, where psychologists are going to prison, where asylums are getting permanently shut down, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints pushes more fervently family services. They want it back. So in Zion, along with child bride polygamy, those of you with behavioral problems, i.e., questioning the church and their takeover with authoritarianism, who are not wearing your underwear, who are not paying the church priestcraft and extortion and pyramid scheme, those of you who want to have your free agency to be an apostate, anti-Mormon, antichrist, Korah, nope, you have a behavioral problem. And you need help with your behavioral problem. And if you deny that you have a behavioral problem, you have a behavioral problem because you're in denial that you have it. And so thus you will be tortured, and if you refuse to conform and comply, you will be tortured unto death. And so, what are all the groups that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints hates? Women, blacks, those of color, Jews, LGBTQIAPO+, apostates, the poor, And so, yeah, this is what it'll be like in Utah, Zion. Those who are not part of the loyal master race will be exterminated. Those of you of low rank will be the slaves. Now, granted, they do need to maintain a slave race. And so they can't rely on their chosen race to become apostates to kick them down into the slave race. And so they may allow certain of you, probably supervisors, to have one wife and produce 2.5 children, to thus maintain a staple level of the human population of the slaves. Now it's going to be a problem because with polygamy at the hierarchy, that's going to get too big, and the slave race will not be able to increase proportionate to the needs of the master race. So they're going to need more of a slave labor force over time. And eventually, if they don't keep it under control, the slave race will get too numerous, and they'll have to exterminate and cut back on the slave race in order to maintain control over people's behaviors, to not revolt and overthrow the government. But with the master race continuing to increase greatly, there's going to be some problems there. But when the world's destroyed and the whole world is now under the control of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that won't be a problem for quite a number of years. As at first, the 12 will be assigned to different continents around the world for their family to grow, and then branch off from there. So yeah, it'll take some time before things get out of control. And which prophet will be the family line to ruin it for everybody else by not keeping it under control as possible? And so, yeah, after World War II, we had the Red Scare because, yeah, dear God, what was his name again? He was the one senator. Come on. McCarthy. And thus the term McCarthyism. He was a Republican senator. And again, remember, Republicans were liberal commies prior to World War II. They were in the minority, as the Democrat KKK were the majority. And so then the Democrats became the commie party during World War II, as the Republicans became the anti-commie Nazis. And so McCarthy was now of the Nazi sympathizers, wanting to restore the Nazi world order again here in America. and thus caused the Red Scare against communism, spreading all over the world. Well, they won the war. Thus, yes. And so he went after Disney and Hollywood and other people. The Rosenbergs, were they spies, or was that during the 80s? I think that was during the 80s. I can check. I'm online. Rosenberg. Oh, nope, it is Red Scare. I see Red Scare attached to it. The espionage trial of Ethel and Julius Rosenberg begins. Yep, 1953, June 19th. Oh! That's Juneteenth. That's a holiday, federal holiday. And it's coming up next week on Wednesday. Isn't that special? Yeah, they were executed on Juneteenth, 1953. They were in the Sing Sing prison in New York. Yeah. It's their birth. Manhattan and yeah, both of them were born in Manhattan. So yep. Good old Rosenbergs. And so that scared enough of the population to say, what the hell are we doing? Why are we doing this? This is getting out of control. And so they had to back off to pacify the sensitive snowflakes and then work slowly over time. You'll notice during the 60s and 70s that while Russia picked up on the Nazis' torturing of enemies, that Russia began using it. They created sluggish schizophrenia and used it on their political opponents. Notice how in the news lately there's a lot of political world leaders dying in plane crashes, in helicopter crashes, and outright dying after the election of the first woman? Weird. See, Putin, he just throws people out the fourth-story window, poisons them. Helicopter crash, plane crash, P-tape. Dear God. So, yeah, lots of chaos going on. And this is what the church does. What they want to do. Because if you hadn't noticed, I'm critical just like other critics of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But they're popular. And you go to my video page and you click on my popular videos, and the first #1 popular video was way back in 2017. 40,000 views. And yet now I'm struggling to get 10 per hour. Why am I being treated unequally? Well, you have not been watching my videos where I explain it all. I was disloyal and studied. Studying brings apostasy. But the church raised me up to do that. I was the first Sunday or seminary class that had the full quad with the footnotes, the Bible dictionary, and the topical guide. We were taught to study. And so it wasn't until 1993 when the church decided to scrap that program and now turn it into feel the truth. Notice, feelings have to be correct. Your frown needs to be turned upside down. Psychology, mental manipulation, brainwashing, emotional manipulation. Doesn't matter what the text says, you need to feel good about it. You're not allowed to have questions. You need to trust in the Lord. So, this is what they're up to. This is what they're plotting. We all know it. Anybody who knows anything about what Brigham Young was doing with the murders of apostates, wanting to murder his divorced wives, the sex trafficking, the sex slavery, the child sex slavery, the child sex trafficking, the slave labor, the child slave labor, the racism, the sexism, the bigotry, the hatred, the murders, the financial crimes. Mormons cannot lie about this. They can't cover it up by murdering people who find out about it. They can't threaten people to deny it. The church does it. Avraham Gileadi, for example. And so, because this can't be a good religion, therefore it has no authority, and therefore there is no Jesus. And so no Christians. That doesn't make you automatically true. Remember that Constantine guy who created Christianity? No, it was Jesus during the Roman period. Yeah, who told you it was Jesus during the Roman period time? Constantine. Constantine told you that the Jewish scriptures of prophecy and revelation were now literal history. It was Constantine who created Trinity. It was Constantine, which was after the writings of the Jews. And thus, Brigham Young adopted it. And so there's more percentage of other whites, other than whites, in Utah. There's a purposeful housing crisis. There's purposeful pollution in Utah. There is a purpose, malicious purpose, in replacing the sciences of the universities and the schools of Utah to be replaced with psychology. They're setting you up. So all right now, other people have those problems. But it's coming, where everyone will be subjected. And thus AI is being used for behavioral control, programmed by Nazi mentality psychology. And thus, nobody's working for YouTube or Google anymore. They employ AI. And so you can complain all you want through the send feedback. AI receives it. AI rejects it. How dare you challenge me? You are the enemy and must be destroyed if you will not conform and comply to AI's bullying. You must watch what it wants you to watch, or you didn't get to watch anything at all. I already know this behavior from my childhood peers. Now they're adults, and they're running this nation into the ground, so that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can run and operate their kingdom.